Hey y'all, this episode involves discussions about murder and sexual assault and includes foul language that some listeners may find offensive. This episode may not be appropriate for children under the age of 13. Listener discretion advised.
Super advised.
Hey y'all, I'm Mary.
I'm Christina.
And this is True Crime Down Yonder. What are we getting into today?
Well, are we starting out with that?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I think I'm pretty sure this is going to be our first official episode. Hopefully, we recorded one last week, and we decided just to scratch that. So we're hoping that this one is actually going to make it. So we thank you for being here.
Yeah, we do.
All three of you.
Yeah, all three of you.
And we hope that you'll let us know what you think and if we have a future.
Yeah, this is something completely new for us. I'm doing again. That's the whole reason why I cut out all the stuff in the last episode. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we are True Crime Down Yonder, so I'm pretty sure from our name you can get what we're talking about.
Pets.
No. No, we're
living your best life.
We try to cover crimes that happen in the Southeast and other entities.
And other oddities. So if we want to do something other than true crime, we're hoping that we won't get a bunch of hate mail for it. So we're throwing that in there in case we want to do like some paranormal stuff, or we want to tell you how you should be living or something like that. We want to make sure that it's covered. So let's do a quick disclaimer.
Well, and guys, we also want to let you guys know that this is a true crime podcast, which means that we won't be using the best language. That's just kind of who we are. So if you do not like to hear the F word a lot, then maybe you should stop this right now.
Yeah.
Because we say fuck. Say fuck.
Fuck.
Bitch. There you go.
Yeah,
we're normal people, and
cover them all.
We don't want to offend anybody. And keep in mind that we're not trying to make light of horrible situations, but sometimes you just gotta get through it and laugh.
We're trying to make
light of it, but keep in mind that we keep the victims in mind, and we will never throw shade at the victims. Mostly just the suspects.
Well, I don't know. Maybe a little shade at the victims. It depends on the case. But then again, it is true crime. So if it's not your jam, that's cool. Go listen to something else.
Obviously, if you found this, it's your jam.
We're going to be covering some pretty bad cases. This one that we're starting out with, it's not too bad. And that's one of the reasons why we decided not to go with the last episode. Because that was a fucking horrible case.
I know.
We wanted to cry. And so this one is not quite as bad, but we hope to get deeper into it. So this might be a podcast that you don't want to listen to in front of your kids, or maybe put your earbuds in, but we hope that you enjoy it.
Because we are the kind of people that you do not want to have on speakerphone sometimes when you're talking to us. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so
let's jump in.
All right, so Mary, what is the single most thing that I hate the worst, that I'm deathly afraid of? Biggest phobia I got.
Snakes. Always has been.
Ding, ding, ding. You are correct. I fucking hate snakes. And last year was such a bad year for me, and not because of the COVID, and not because of all the other stuff that happened, because I encountered these fuckers more last year than I ever have before in my life. And they were coming to me.
Guys, keep in mind that Christina literally, if it's a dead snake, she freaks out. It doesn't matter. Anything that
I hate
snake
snakes.
Skin, fake snakes, she will shit a brick.
They found me last year. They found me.
They love you.
Oh, I've got to snake-proof my yard. I've got to figure out something. But anyway, okay, back to the case. So, if we were playing Redneck Clue, which if it's not a thing, it should be, and I were to solve this case, I would say it was the preacher in the woodshed. with a rattlesnake.
The Preacher in the Woods Shed with the Rattlesnake. If that don't sound like some Alabama shit, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. Okay, so today we are covering the case of Glenn and Darlene Summerford.
Ooh. I've actually never heard this case.
Never heard the case?
Yeah, you said it was popular, but I don't think I have.
Okay, so I don't think a lot of younger people know about it. I actually remember as a kid, because it did happen when I was a kid, I remember hearing about it because Mom, and by the way, we're sisters.
Yeah.
Because Mom used to watch like talk shows, Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and all them, Oprah and all that. And Darlene was actually a guest on a lot of those shows. So it made pretty big headlines in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But then I guess it kind of disappeared off people's radar. But just last month, HBO released a documentary called Alabama Snake. And that is one of the biggest sources I used for this. But you should watch it.
After this. That's why I didn't want to watch it yet.
Yeah, you should watch it. I think it's, kind of come back on the radar and people are starting to talk about it again.
I wanted to live react to you, so I didn't watch it.
Cool. I appreciate that.
So did this happen in the 80s?
It happened in the 90s. It happened 1991.
Oh, so yeah, I was a baby, so there's no way I would remember this. Yeah. That makes sense.
So, for this case, we are going down to Scottsboro, Alabama. Ooh. Scottsboro is located in Jackson County, and it has a population of about 14,000, so it's pretty small. It's pretty small for a town. And Jackson County is in the most northeastern part of Alabama, so it borders both Tennessee and Georgia.
So it's like right there at the Chattanooga.
It's in the corner.
Okay, yeah.
It is in the Chattanooga area. It's probably about an hour from Chattanooga. And it's actually in a region, it's in the southern tip of the Appalachian Mountains. And this is a region that's called Sand Mountain. And it's a plateau that spans through this portion of Alabama and also parts of Georgia and Tennessee. So the town's not really known for too much, but one thing it is known for is there's a store there that draws people in from other states, and it's called Unclaimed Baggage. It sounds like us.
Unclaimed baggage.
But it's not. So this is a store that gets the unclaimed luggage or lost luggage from all the airports in the United States.
And they sell it
for the cheap.
That's a genius idea.
They sell it for the cheap. So that's only like a couple hours from
here. So you could get a used toothbrush for 5 cents, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can't afford a full-price toothbrush, this is the place to go. So I think we should check it. It's only like a couple hours away.
Is it still open?
It sounds like a good way to get bed bugs.
Get headlights.
I mean, it's all fun and games until you bring back some tropical spider that lays eggs in your ear. But, anyway. So, let's go into the case, okay?
All right.
Let's see. Where am I at on my notes? All right. So, I'm really not quite sure about the date that the paramedics were called, but I'm thinking it was somewhere around October 5th or 6th, either the late evening on October 5th or early morning hours of October 6th, 1991. Paramedics are called out to a dilapidated house on the outskirts of Scottsboro. They're about to turn in this driveway, and when they're turning in the driveway, the dispatcher calls in and says, go in code 1, which code 1 means that they need to turn off their lights and their sirens, the flashing lights and the sirens. So they proceed up this driveway, and as they're going up the driveway slowly, a lady walks out, and she's kind of stumbling around, which is creepy as fuck.
Like she's drunk, or?
Yeah, like something's going on. Yeah. She's stumbling out, and when they get a little bit closer to her, when she gets closer to them, they can see that she has this wicked bad wound on her arm. It's like black and swollen.
Ew.
Yeah. And so they load her up in the ambulance, and they take her to a local hospital in Scottsboro. And the hospital looks at her, but they can't treat her because it's a snake bite. And at this small town hospital, they do not have antivenom.
Oh, is that why they couldn't treat her?
Yeah, they didn't have the antivenom. So the paramedics had to load her back up and drive her about 80 miles to Birmingham.
Man.
Yeah. So on the trip to Birmingham, I guess, she tells them that she has been bitten by a rattlesnake twice.
Ooh.
And the reason she got bit by a rattlesnake was because her husband and Pentecostal preacher, Glenn Summerford, who's 47, held a gun to her head and forced her hand into a snake cage. Not once, but twice.
If that had been you...
Oh, I would have killed the bastard. If I didn't die
I could just imagine,
from shock.
Right now I'm imagining, you freaking out. I don't know. When I think about you and snakes... Oh my God,
that is like a night. That is just my worst nightmare right there. But then again, I would not be with him anyway. I wouldn't, because we're getting to these snakes. Snakes. Okay. So the next day, police detectives led by Detective Clarence Bold go out to this property. Mm-hmm. And Glenn Summerford, her husband, allows them to search the property. He takes them out to a woodshed that's locked. He unlocks the shed for them. And in this shed, they find 12 to 14 rattlesnakes and 4 to 5 copperheads.
What the fuck? Why would he... Was he like a snake fanatic?
Not exactly.
Okay.
They used these snakes in religious practices.
In the Pentecostal church.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they do that.
All right.
So, let me tell you a little bit about that.
Shows how much I know about, certain religions.
It's a thing. Okay, so the whole practice of snake handling in churches stems from a couple of Bible verses. And these Bible verses say, "And these signs shall follow, that them that believe in my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." So, Christianity's been around for like a couple thousand years. I mean, it's pretty old religion, right? Yeah. This practice did not even start until a little over 100 years ago, and it started in the Appalachian Mountains of the United States. And before that, nobody had ever taken this verse literally, and nobody had ever done this. I mean, Jesus wasn't passing around snakes at the Last Supper.
Here, take this as my friend. Just pass him around.
You don't see the Pope with these hanging off his robe? I'm pretty sure there were no snakes on the Mayflower. I'm pretty sure the Puritans did not bring them.
When I think of snakes, I think of Medusa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think of Jesus or the
church,
Pope.
Yeah. But, so it began in the early 20th century in Appalachia. It began in the Chattanooga area. And even though this has been debated, a man by the name of George Went Hensley is often credited with the introduction of snake handling. George founded the Dolly Pond Church of God in Birchwood, Tennessee in 1910.
I thought you were about to say Dolly Parton. I was like...
No.
I love Dolly.
I hope she doesn't do this. Anyway, so he traveled the southeast promoting this practice, and sister churches sprang up in small towns. Believers argue that if believers truly had the Holy Spirit, they could handle rattlesnakes without being harmed. And therefore, snake handling became a test and a demonstration of one's faith. Mm. Hensley himself was kind of an unconventional guy to be a minister. He was married 4 times, with the first 3 marriages ending in divorce, and was often drunk.
Oh.
Which I guess you'd have to be to handle rattlesnakes. Anyway, so he preached this. He had been bitten several times, but he preached this for 45 years, and he ended by dying of a snake bite that he received at a service conducted in Alpha, Florida in 1955.
I guess his faith just wasn't there. That snake
just wasn't
that snake
there.
knew that he wasn't where he needed to be, so it's a shock, really.
Yeah. So, in these churches, worshipers are encouraged to lay hands on the sick, speak in tongues, provide testimony of miracles, and occasionally consume poison. And they also hold flames to themselves.
Okay. Okay.
We're not trying to make fun of religion. I mean,
I'm just watching you say it, and it's
trying my best to keep a straight face. And okay, those who die from rattlesnake bites are never criticized for lack of faith. It's merely believed that it was their time to die.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And also, usually when they do get bitten, they don't seek medical attention. Most of them don't. I think some of them do, but most of them don't.
So
they just pray about it.
So if they get bitten, does that let the cat out of the bag that they were sinning or something like that? Like the snake bit you. It's like, you're not holy. The snake bit you.
I mean, it's pretty messed up that not only are you getting bit by a rattlesnake, but the church looks at you like you're a horrible person.
I always thought of snake as being creatures of not of a biblical.
Well, that's how they feel about it. They feel that like they're, they're Satan in reptile form.
They're cold-blooded.
So they feel like if you're a true believer, that you can conquer Satan. So, you're conquering Satan. And you're holding death in your hand, and you're defeating death. Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm paying my taxes, and that's how I defeat Satan. Okay? The IRS, okay?
Oh, that's all right. So the only state where this is still legal, and this should come as a complete shock, is West Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is still legal in West Virginia.
It's also still legal in West Virginia to marry your cousin.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Is it Tennessee that
it's actually legal in Virginia, because I saw a show one time, the show about the gypsies, where one of them wanted to marry their cousin, and they lived in West Virginia, and they had to go to Virginia to get married. And everybody, might think that looks bad on Virginia, but I'm thinking it was a big problem in West Virginia, so they had to make it a law. But nobody in Virginia does that shit.
That's it, guys. I've had enough.
Anyway, if there's anybody listening that's from West Virginia, we love you.
Definitely don't mean anything by
God's
that.
country, beautiful land up there.
It is.
Anyway, let's get back.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that, guys.
Okay, so Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky have all passed laws against it. It's a misdemeanor in all of those states. Georgia made it a felony, punishable by death in 1941, after a 7-year-old died from a snake bite that she sustained at a church service.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And the punishment was, and it was punishable by death. And the punishment was so severe that juries refused to convict. And the law was repealed, in 1968. The American Civil Liberties Union has defended the religious freedom of snake handlers against attempts to outlaw the practice.
Well, that's good.
Dr. Ralph Hood, who is a retired professor of psychology and religion at UT Chattanooga, and if you watch any documentaries on this, he's usually in all of them, because he actually really studied this case. He's interviewed Glenn Summerford. He even wrote a book about him. So you see him a lot. But he said that if you go to one of these snake handling churches, that you'll often see people with atrophied hands and missing fingers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
I wonder how they got those.
I don't know. So in 2008, 10 people were arrested and 125 venomous snakes were confiscated in Kentucky as a part of an undercover sting operation titled Twice Shy. Get it? Once bitten, twice shy.
Okay.
But they maintain that it does not present a danger to observers. There's been no documented case of a non-handling member being bitten. They only let consenting adults handle the snakes. Kids can't participate. And only 10 to 15 of congregants handle
10 to 15%?
snakes. 10 to 15%, yeah, of the congregants actually handle the snakes. And those who are not handling them sit apart from the ones that are. So pretty much, from what I've gathered, the way this works is when you're in a service and you're worshiping and you are in the Holy Spirit, God will tell you that you can pick up these snakes. And at that, if God tells you can do it, you can do it. But if God tells you to put them down or quit doing that, then you need to, because you're going to get bitten.
God's been telling you to stay the fuck away from your whole
God
life.
has told me to stay away from these things my whole entire life. He's never told me to pick up a snake. I hope he never does. So anyway, yeah, that's a little bit of background on snake handling.
All right.
In churches. And
to be honest, I never knew that.
Really?
Yes, I really never knew that. I knew that
I've seen videos and I've heard of it.
I know that they've used snakes in what is it? Is it?
I keep hitting this table.
I know. Is it? I don't want to say it's Buddhism. Is it Buddhism that they use snakes?
I don't know.
I feel like
I've never.
I don't know. If anybody's listening and they know a little bit about that, maybe you could tell me and educate me.
Yeah, we're not trying
to
offend anybody.
Yeah, we're not trying to defend anybody.
I don't think Buddhists handle snakes.
But I literally have never heard of Pentecostals doing it.
It's Pentecostals, and there are a few other denominations that do it, but they're not very common. And they estimate that there's probably less than 125 churches in the United States that still
today?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because it's illegal in most places and because of the stigma around it, they do not really practice in the open. I mean, this is not just any church you find on the corner. They do this in people's homes, in barns, abandoned gas stations, shacks. So they're pretty much on the low. And if you wanted to find one, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to find one, but I don't know what to tell you if you did.
That's okay, because they find you.
But maybe you'd have some luck in West Virginia.
I don't
want
to
go
there.
Check one of these
good.
out. Okay. So
if I want a snake, I'll go look in Dad's backyard.
Anyway, let's talk about Mr. Glenn Summerford, the bad mamma jamma from Alabama. All right.
He's a bad mamma jamma. He's got your snakes.
All right. So he was born in 1944. He says that he had a pretty rough early life, or he grew up rough.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, I know. He says he never knew his real father. And he describes himself as being a quiet child and kind of shy, kept to himself. And this made him the target of bullying. So he was getting the shit beat out of him all the time by other kids, right?
Yeah.
So his mother remarries his stepfather, and this is a man that had served in the army and had just come back from the war, which I can only assume was World War II. And he said his stepfather was special forces, and that he had special fighting skills. Like the kind that you can kill somebody with your bare hands.
Like a Navy SEAL or... Yeah.
So his stepfather decided to teach him how to fight.
Okay.
So his stepfather probably gets a little rough with him because he's like a sparring partner, but he teaches Glenn how to fight. And then Glenn beats the brakes off of anybody that crossed him.
All right. I mean, that happens. Yeah. That pins up aggression and gets you.
So in 1962, Glenn was convicted of second-degree burglary and served some time in prison. And he was out for, I think, around 3 years, and then got another grand larceny charge and went back to jail.
Oh, okay.
So somewhere in here, he marries his first wife, Doris.
So this guy was pretty troubled, in his earlier years.
He had some issues.
He was a rolling stone.
Yeah, until he found God and the snakes. But anyway, so he marries his first wife, Doris. Doris Summerford. She claims that she loved him, but she knew he had a violent temper and that she was afraid of him. They had children. I'm not sure how many kids they had, but I'm thinking they had several, like more than 3.
Oh.
But
bless her heart.
Glenn did say that there was one child they had, a little girl named Sarah, that at this time she was about 18 months old. He was very close to this little girl, and he described her as a daddy's girl. Mm-hmm. Well, so Glenn still likes to fight. And so he begins to set up, and I guess he's making money off these fights. He sets up these fights, and I think it's a kind of thing where people can bet.
Yeah, people do that. I've seen that being done before. They get in there and
semi-professional fighting.
Yeah, like
something
kind of
like that.
UFC type of thing, but not UFC.
Yeah. So he's doing this stuff.
That's all redneck thing.
So he arranges a fight. He gets in a fight with this guy that I guess no one had ever beaten this guy before. Uh-huh. And so I'm thinking that a lot of people bet against Glenn. And Glenn ended up beating the hell out of him. And so I guess people lost money. So Glenn says that this fight garnered him a lot of enemies. Like a lot of people were out to get him.
Because they were losing money and they were losing fights?
I guess. Well, no, it was just this one fight. Uh-huh. But I think he kind of like overkilled this guy. Like, he said he beat his eye through his head.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's why.
Was he a big guy?
I've seen pictures of him. He looks like he was a big enough guy.
I know that doesn't really matter because honestly, some of the best fighters I've ever seen are short, little, stocky guys. But I just wanted to.
He seems like a pretty big guy. He seems like he's pretty tall. But I think I've only seen pictures of him like standing next to women.
I mean, does he look intimidating? I'm gonna look him up.
Yeah, he looks intimidating. He looks like an evil bastard. He really does.
I'm gonna look him up.
But anyway, so he thinks that these people that were out for him started a house fire at him and Doris's home. So one night, their oldest son, Glenn Jr., comes and wakes him up and tells him that the house is on fire. And Glenn takes a TV and throws it through a window. And Doris is getting the kids and passing them off to Glenn, and Glenn is setting them outside the window. And Doris said that she was reaching for little Sarah, and she caught on fire. So Glenn is trying to put her out, and she's fighting Glenn.
Oh, wow.
Probably because she's trying to get to her daughter. Well, Glenn just, grabs her and falls with her out of the window to save her.
Okay.
This is Doris. And so they get out, they get away from the house fire, and Glenn says he was counting the kids, which makes me think that they had quite a few, because you got to count heads.
Yeah.
And he realized that little Sarah was still in the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
And she was still a baby?
She was 18 months old, yeah.
Oh.
And so after this...
I hate that.
Doris said that they were not the same. And she said that Glenn would often go to the cemetery by himself and kind of sit in the cemetery. But he never wanted to talk about it.
So, this little girl was basically it was his favorite kid.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And he
had a certain bond with her.
I mean, he said that she, and no matter what time he came home at night or whatever, she would wake up and he would stay up with her. And so I guess they formed a bond. But Doris said after this, Glenn just wasn't the same. I think this is when he began to drink heavily. And while they both said they still loved each other at the time, I guess the marriage just wasn't working. So they separated.
Okay.
So during the time that they're separated, he meets Darlene Collins, who was 19 at the time.
And how old was he?
I think there's a 10 or 11 year age difference on them.
Okay.
So she was 19, and she'd already had a child, but the child had been taken away from her for her, quote, misconduct, unquote. I have no idea what that means. But anyway, I guess he starts seeing Darlene, and then he marries her shortly after while still being legally married to his first wife. And Darlene says that he didn't even use his real name when he married her. So I don't see how they were legally married at all.
Yeah, I didn't think you could legally marry somebody when you were already married.
I don't know how things work in Alabama. So not long after this, they have their, I think is their first child, Marty. And Glenn is drinking heavily, and he still likes to fight. And Marty, who is in this documentary, Alabama Snake, who is, of course, is an adult now, he said that when his father would get angry, he had no conscience. And he even said that they were somewhere, and there was this drunk guy that was trying to hit on Darlene, hit on his mom, and that Glenn took his eye out with a set of vice grips.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, this man was not in the documentary, which I think would have been so cool if he was. I think it would have been great if, like, they flashed to him sitting in a chair with an eye patch, like, yeah, fuck Glenn Summerford. I would have fallen off the couch. But I don't know what happened to this man. I mean, he would have made a good witness.
I bet you're wondering why you can't see my left eye. And I'll tell you, that son of a bitch.
Glenn Summerford. So anyway, at some point...
I'm looking at him now, and he's he's an intimidating looking kind of guy.
He is. They said he was kind of a monster. But I guess at some point, Glenn decides he needs to get right with God.
All right.
So Glenn desperately wants to be able to read the Bible. But there's only one problem with that. And that's that he dropped out of school in the 7th grade and was illiterate. So he couldn't read. So he prays, and he says God tells him that if he gets away by himself and fasts and prays, that he'll teach him how to read the Bible. So Glenn does this. He goes off somewhere. I'm thinking he went off in the woods. I guess he camped out or something. And he spent 30 days fasting and praying. And at the end of these 30 days, he can read the Bible.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the only book he could read. I mean... It would suck if he could read the word Corinthians, but couldn't read the menu board at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Psalms. Not Psalms. It's a book of Psalms.
Yeah. So anyway, after this, he's a new man. He gives up fighting, gives up drinking, starts preaching. He forms the Church of Jesus with signs following in an abandoned gas station.
All right.
So after this, him and Darlene, they're good. They got their kid. They got their snakes. They're setting themselves on fire and drinking strychnine. Everything's great, right? So a lot of people in this documentary, including Marty, said that they have witnessed Glenn perform miracles. Marty said that he had seen Glenn pray over elderly people who were in wheelchairs and hadn't walked in years, and these people would get up and start running around the church. Okay. And there was I think it was a former church parishioner that said that her son, had been in a bad car accident, and his jaw was broken, I guess, in several places, and he couldn't even eat. That's what she says. She says Glenn laid his hands on him, and then this boy says to her, "Mama, I can feel my jaw shifting." Now, keep in mind, he couldn't even eat. But as soon as Glenn touches him, he can speak and tell his mom this whole sentence.
Damn, Mama, give me a jawbreaker. I can feel my jaw again. Thank you, Glenn.
So apparently he has all these he has all these powers.
So, like, is it kind of like what's his name? Jonestown.
I would say he is a borderline cult leader. They said he was very charismatic, that he was a really good preacher, and that he could talk you into anything.
Like Jim Jones used to do that, though.
I don't know if
Jim Jones used to be like, he could lay his hands on you and make people walk
again.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure those were actors and actresses. I'm pretty sure,
But they're saying that these are real.
Yeah, but these are people's, their statements. Who knows? So yeah, everything's going great, Him, Darlene, the snakes.
Sounds like
And there's like a ton of video of them in church handling these snakes, dancing around.
I know, I was just looking online and it's him handling snakes and stuff.
Right. So at some point, things go bad. And whenever you hear about a case where somebody has killed their spouse or attempted to kill their spouse, the first question that comes to everybody's mind is, why do this? Why not just get a divorce?
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
In this case, it is clear that neither of these divorce was not an option in this
Why
case.
not? It was an option 4 times.
No, that was not him. That was the guy that founded the snake handling.
Oh, okay.
Glenn's
my bad.
only been married once, and that was before he got redeemed.
I got you. He was married to Doris first.
Right.
Okay,
He was only married to Doris, but, he got redeemed. But the reason that Glenn could not get divorced from Darlene is because this denomination is called Holiness Pentecostals. So Pentecostals don't do the snake handling, but I guess this Holiness Pentecostal does.
Okay.
But in this church, if he got divorced, he couldn't preach.
Okay.
And also, it's been said that Darlene didn't want to get a divorce because she was afraid of losing custody of Marty. So, murder's the only option. I mean, what are you going to do?
I have heard of cases where, I think it's in, it's not even just Catholic. It's in a lot of religions where divorce is not an option, period. You got to ride that thing
I think
out.
there are loopholes, but killing somebody.
That's what I'm saying. I would rather,
start another one. Go get you some more snakes. Load up the snakes. Find you another gas station and start over, But anyway, I guess at some point, Glenn began to drink again.
Oh, bummer.
And spoiler alert, later on in this trial, one of the parishioners testified that Darlene had tried to kill Glenn by poisoning him. Of course, how would you... they're drinking poison. That's something they do.
Yeah.
But I guess she was trying to kill him. She was trying to poison him. Darlene says that she never tried to kill him because she knew he wouldn't die. And she knew he wouldn't die because she said he had a demon in him. Now, she does not mean this metaphorically. She said she literally saw a demon jump into Glenn.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, she says one night, her and Glenn, they're asleep in bed. She wakes up and sees this, shadow figure in their room.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, Darlene's an expert, so she knows exactly what to do. So, she says, "In the name of Jesus, I rebuke you." And the shadow thing goes away. Well, all this ruckus wakes Glenn up. Glenn wakes up, and she tells him what happened. He says, "You didn't rebuke no devil. Call him back in here." So Darlene's like, "Excuse me, Mr. Creepy Fuck? Would you come back in here for a minute? Glenn wants to ask you something." So this thing that I guess is still hanging out in the house, hoping they'll change their mind.
Did they offer it? Did they ask it to sit down and have coffee?
I think he was in the kitchen making itself a sandwich or something. Anyway, he comes back in to their room and immediately jumps into Glenn. And so this is where she says he changes.
Okay.
This is when he starts to drink, and this is when he starts beating her.
Oh no.
Yeah, so they're in this she's in this abusive relationship with him, and there's no clear way out, I guess. So anyway, this crime there kind of comes down to he said, she said. So let me give you both versions here.
Okay.
Of what happened on the night of October 4th, or that weekend. Okay, so we're going to go with Glenn's side first, because he's my favorite. We're just going to go with him. I just like Glenn. All right, so Glenn claims that the closer that he got to God, the further he got away from Darlene. That he was kind of just falling out of love with her, I guess, or neglecting her because he was devoting all his time to the Lord and the snakes and all that. And he said that Darlene was trying to set him up, that she was trying to get him to put his hands on her so that she could have him. Yeah, she could have him arrested.
Okay.
He said that she did this by telling her about all of her sexual experiences and how many times she cheated on him and who she was cheating on him with. Well, he's Joe Cool. So he doesn't take the bait on this. It's like, okay, cool, whatever, Darlene. He doesn't take the bait. So she goes as far to say that she has been having sex with his teenage sons.
Ew.
Yeah. While he was away, while he wasn't home.
Was she really? Or is she just saying
okay,
that?
so this is Glenn's story. Keep in mind, this is Glenn's story.
This is his side of the story.
He says this is what she said. Now, one of the sons corroborated this. One of the sons said that she had been having sex with them, forcing them to have sex with her since the age of 12. The other son denies it completely. So, who knows where the truth lies. But I'm telling you, the whole way through this, they are completely slut-shaming this woman.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what she actually did, but yeah, they act like she is just the biggest nympho. Like, she'll just fuck anything that walks. Maybe doesn't walk. Maybe she fucked the snake if somebody held the head for it. I don't know. But yeah, they make her out to be really, really bad. Anyway.
That makes me think of that. You remember that thing when they came out, the hamsters?
What?
The hamsters, and, you know...
Your hamsters?
No, you remember the hamsters that people really, like, take hamsters?
No, not on this podcast.
Let me links from South Park. Let me links. Okay, I'm sorry, but with a snake, okay.
Okay. That's making me cough. Alright, so, after Darlene tells him this, he says, well, I have no choice but to divorce you. And she tells him she doesn't want a divorce. And also, he claims that she was afraid of going to jail for this. And also, she was afraid of losing custody of Marty. And this made her suicidal. He said that she made a suicide attempt, that she took a bottle of pills while he was outside one day. And Marty saw her take these pills, and he goes and runs out and tells Glenn. And Glenn comes running in the house, and he makes her drink a bunch of water, and he prays over her, because, you know, he has these powers.
He has to do that, yeah.
Yeah, he prays over her, and after he does this, she goes and vomits out in the yard and throws it all up. So, Glenn tells her the night that all this goes down, he tells her that he keeps telling her he wants a divorce. According to him, she tells him, Glenn, I've repented. Let's go out to the shed and I'll show you. Like, she's going to handle these snakes to show him that she is right with the Lord or whatever.
Okay.
And when he gives this account of his story, he's telling this to Dr. Burton, who is doing the interview with him.
Right.
So Dr. Burton says, well, maybe it went like this. Maybe you told her, when she told you this, maybe you told her that she was lying and that y'all needed to go out to the shed so she could show you.
Okay.
Either way, it's obvious that Glenn Summerford thinks these snakes are a polygraph test.
Okay.
So if somebody ever tells you they want to give you an Appalachian polygraph test, just say no.
Well, no, don't ever take a polygraph.
Ask for an attorney.
Yes.
But definitely don't take one of these. Don't let a rattlesnake decide.
Don't take a rattlesnake polygraph. Don't take a regular polygraph. Don't do any of it, just to be safe.
So, anyway, he said that Friday night, October 4th, they're supposed to go to church. But Darlene tells him that she's been snake bit. So he's like, okay, we'll just stay home and pray.
Okay.
So they stay home. He says the next day she looked like she was feeling better. And they go out and they run some errands. They go to the video store and the grocery store. They do a few things in town. He said she was fine this whole time. And then they got something to eat and they came home. So he said that night he told her that Monday he was going to get a divorce, but that he was also going to have her mentally evaluated to try to get her help.
Okay.
He said he then fell asleep, and when he woke up, she was gone, and she had left a suicide note.
Sirens are getting loud.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on. So let me tell you what this suicide note reads as soon as I can find it. Okay. So this is a suicide note written by Darlene Summerford. And it's addressed to their son, Marty.
Okay.
Marty, I love you. Do what Daddy says. I tried to fix everything, but it didn't work out. Don't blame Daddy, because he loves me and trying to help me, but I wouldn't listen. Daddy's asleep and don't know what I'm doing. Marty, always remember I love you for the good, not the bad. Love you. Try to get right, your mama. I went out and got snake bit. Glenn is asleep and don't know. You and Daddy live right. I love you.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Glenn's side of the story, okay? So here is Darlene's. Glenn is accusing her of cheating. I guess this is Friday night. He accuses her of cheating. So he takes her out, drags her by her hair out to this woodshed where they're keeping these rattlesnakes. And he puts a gun to her head and takes her over to one of these snake cages with a gun to her head and tells her she can either put her hand in the box or he's going to put her face in the box. So she chooses to put her hand in the box. She sticks her left hand in. She gets bit. So Saturday morning, he tells her he will get her help. He'll take her to the hospital if she goes with him to the liquor store.
Okay.
So he can get some whiskey. Or
So
I think he preferred vodka.
So
that was his drink of choice.
I'm assuming that, like, this whole thing, like, he's drunk doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking there's some alcohol involved
Absolutely.
here. Yeah.
He's got some issues.
So she goes with him, and she claims that they go to the video store to return some movies because, God forbid, them get a late charge in the middle of all this shit. They don't need that. It's the last thing they need. Anyway, so she goes to the video store. She said that the video clerk noticed her hand swelling and asked if she was okay. But she told her she was because Glenn had the gun with him the whole time and threatened her if she told anybody that he was going to shoot her. So they go video store. They go to the liquor store. They get Glenn's vodka. And then they go home. Well, Glenn tells her he never takes her to the hospital. He tells her he was lying about that. They go home, and Glenn says at 7 p.m. she's going to get bit again. This time she's going to die. And he forces her to write the suicide note to Marty. So 7 p.m. comes around, and I guess she's feeling kind of bad from the first rattlesnake bite.
I'd say so.
I'm thinking it's got her a little
I think they're
down.
pretty venomous.
I think they're pretty rough. So I guess she falls asleep on the couch. He wakes her up by urinating on her face.
Okay.
Which,
that's always a good way to wake up.
Why would you pee on your own couch?
I'm gonna piss on you.
I mean, you should pee on your wife, but why pee on your own couch? I don't know.
Why would you want to pee on your own couch?
That's what I'm saying.
It's ruining shit. So, it's like pissing there forever.
Right. So he drags her back out by her hair to the woodshed and does the exact same thing. And this time he tells her he wants her to die because he's going to marry somebody else in the church. And he does the same thing again. He takes her over to the cage and tells her she can stick her hand in or she can stick her face in with a gun to her head. So she sticks her left hand in again and she gets bit. And before he did this, he agitated this rattlesnake. He took like a rod or something and like rattled the cage and poked at it and got it really good and pissed off. So as soon as she puts her hand in, he bites the snake. Why am I like personifying the snake? Anyway, snake bites her. So he drags her back in the house and he throws her on the couch and tells her, "You get off that couch, I'm going to blow your head off."
Wow. So
then he just like sits in a chair and waits for her to die. And he's drinking. So she says it took about a fifth of vodka, but he finally passed out. And that's when she called for help.
I'm surprised she was able to, I mean, because doesn't that venom like take over pretty quick?
Yeah. I mean, and when I was doing research on this, I saw, I was researching the snake handling churches, and someone said that a rattlesnake bite feels like your hand, if you get bit on your hand, it feels like your hand is on fire, and then with every heartbeat, it's like you're taking a hammer and beating it out. Ooh. Yeah. So it's pretty rough. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that she survived all that, but I guess she did. So nobody really knows, for sure who's telling the truth. And some people thought, well, maybe Marty knows, because Marty is their kid and he lives with them.
Do you know how old he was at this time?
I'm thinking he was around 12 or 13 at this time. So Marty's story is that his mom and dad were fighting and they were running around the yard, and that Glenn was chasing Darlene with a shotgun.
Okay.
And so Marty is trying to protect his mom. So he has an archery set, his bow and arrow. And he actually shot one of these arrows at his dad, and it went like right past his head. Like came really close to him. So at this point, I don't know if it was Glenn or Darlene, but somebody decided they need to send him somewhere else. Like, he doesn't need to be there. They didn't want him to kill Glenn. God forbid. Mm-hmm. So they call his brother and sister-in-law to get him. And I'm thinking this is one of Glenn's older kids.
Yeah.
So they come and pick up Marty. And that was Friday, and that was before she got the first bite. So he didn't witness any of it. He wasn't there. So, anyway, on to the trial. Because those snakes were considered evidence, they had to seize all of them. They had to collect them all. I don't know whose job that was.
But they were just like, goddamn! They was like, goddamn, Tony, you're doing this next time. This shit ain't fair.
So they collect all of these rattlesnakes and copperheads. And they actually, some of them died. And actually the one that they think bit her, which was the largest one. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see a video of them rounding this thing up. This was one mean-ass snake. Like, this snake, they were trying to stuff it into one of those, like, cage things so they could transport it. And it kept trying to jump out. It was horrific. Anyway.
How did you watch this without, like, flipping?
Well, it's like scary stuff. Like, everybody likes to be scared, you know, in a controlled environment. So it's like,
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I watch snake stuff all the time because I'm like, oh, it freaks me out.
You like to do it to yourself?
I kind of like to do it to myself. But God, if one of them motherfuckers get on my porch, I'm going to call the police, the fire department.
It's his house now.
He can have it. Snake
like
can have
the kids too.
Anyway, so they actually kept about 7 of these snakes in the basement of the courthouse just in case they needed it for the trial, just in case the jury or the judge wanted to see him. But, and I don't know whose job that was either.
Did they bring him out in trial?
No, they didn't, but I'm wondering whose job it was to take care of these snakes.
I don't know.
I would think it'd be like a rookie thing. I would think like the newest guy on the police force would probably be in charge of that. That's what I'm thinking. And I can just see that. I can see, the chief of police, they're working on a big case, and the chief is like, assigning responsibilities to everybody. He's delegating, and like the new kid's like, well, what do you want me to do, boss? Well, I'm going to tell you what you can do, Kevin. You're going to go down to the courthouse and feed the 7 rattlesnakes that we got down there for the Summerford trial.
Poor Kevin. And
then you're going to wash all the patrol cars. And then you're going to clean the bathrooms. And then you're just going to stay the hell out of my way. How does that sound?
You're going to wash my drawers.
So that's
poor Kevin.
Yeah.
Bless
so anyway,
the
snakes never made it into the courthouse because both sides were kind of like, yeah, we're good. Like, we admit that she got bit by one of these snakes, so we don't need to see them.
Clearly,
so they never made it to the courtroom. Anyway, so the defense argues pretty much Glenn's side of the story, that she was bitten, but it was intentional on her part, that she decided she wanted to mess with these snakes. They argue that she was obsessed with these snakes.
That she was, Darlene?
Yeah, because she did handle them in the church services. Yeah. They said she was obsessed with these snakes. And, of course, the prosecution argues that Glenn is a miserable, drunk, violent bastard. I mean yeah, he has a history to prove it. So so during this trial, when the defense is at questioning Darlene, when they're cross-examining Darlene, I guess, they ask her, And they're trying to prove that she frequently handled these snakes and that she did this on purpose. And they said, so you and Glenn were feeding these snakes, right? And she said, yes. And they said, I bet you and Glenn would go out and play with these snakes sometimes. And she said, yes. And they said, I bet y'all were even breeding these snakes. And she says, oh, no, sir. They do that themselves.
Okay.
And she was just as serious. And so the jury, laughed about this. The whole courtroom erupted. And this was the part where they think that she connected with the jury.
You didn't really go into detail about how Darlene was. Was she kind of like a not the sharpest tool in the shed type of woman?
Yeah, I'm getting that. And
okay.
I mean, she's in this documentary, and I don't know what to say about Darlene. I don't think any of them are really the sharpest tool in the shed.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can draw your own conclusions from that.
Okay, yeah. So
anyway, they think that she connected with the jury, and so the jury bought her story. Okay. And they convicted Glenn Summerford of attempted first-degree murder, and the judge sentenced him to 99 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The reason that it was so severe was because Glenn had already had 2 prior felony convictions. And with the third strike law, the only options the judge had was a minimum of 99 years and a maximum of life.
So it was more of like a habitual offender type thing. Yeah. Okay.
And so he gives him 99 years, which, I mean, that's not that bad. You serve your time, move on with your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he is eligible for parole. And he came up for parole last year in July.
Okay.
And I don't really know what happened with this. It was denied but rescheduled. And I don't know if that has something to do with COVID, or if they're like, well, we need to give you another few months and maybe you'll learn your lesson then, or I don't know.
So he's still alive?
He is still alive. I think he is 77 to 78 years old. But he is still alive. And he does have a parole hearing coming up. It is set for a couple weeks from now on February 6th.
We should go.
So he should be getting out.
We should go.
He might be getting out.
Well, I mean, I've heard of cases where people have gotten more time for attempted murder than people that have actually done murder, have gotten a murder charge.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the...
That is pretty severe, but do you think that maybe he plotted this? He wanted her... He forced her to get bit by a snake to make it look like she was just handling it and then accidentally got bit?
Yeah, that's what he was trying, his side of the story was that, she was trying to get him to assault her so that he would go to jail. And I don't know if that was her way to get out of the marriage or what, but he said that, or actually he claimed that she was suicidal and that she was trying to get bit by a snake so she could kill herself.
Yeah. And then... I mean, he made it seem like she had some crazy problems. Like she was just this wild woman that was having sex with everybody and his kids.
And that was another part of the trial is but one of the congregation parishioners, that word is so hard to say. One of the people that went to this church.
Words are hard.
One of the people that went to this church, a woman that was a member of Glenn's church, testified that Darlene had told her that she wanted to kill Glenn and told her she wanted to kill Glenn so that she could get her another one of the church members. That she could go out with other church members. Didn't specify one, just any of them, all of them.
She said she wanted to kill
any of them, all of them, because she got around like that.
How many times have I said I wanted to kill Gary? I mean, it happened.
And now you're saying it on radio, pretty much.
I'm not going to kill him, but I'm just saying that you could say that you can't.
Be careful saying that. I've never wanted to kill my spouse. Ever.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so after all this, Darlene kind of goes on this talk show circuit. She's going around telling her story.
Okay.
And there were a lot of criticisms for Darlene. Oh, let me step back for a woman. I'm messing up everything. Let me step back for a moment.
A woman.
That woman that testified, they later found out that Glenn had been in a relationship with her.
Oh.
Yeah, so pretty much, like, everything that the defense claimed, the prosecution was just validating it. And when the suicide letter was presented, you know, of course, the defense is saying, well, she wrote this and left this. But the suicide letter was all about Glenn. Like, don't blame Glenn for this. Glenn's asleep. Glenn don't know nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It kind of sounds like
I tried to fix our marriage. I couldn't do it.
It was me.
Listen.
It was me.
I wouldn't listen. So it pretty much proves the prosecution's point that he made her write it because he was going to kill her.
Yeah.
And then this woman comes out and gives this testimony that Darlene wanted to have Glenn killed, but then it comes to light that she was having an affair with him, which proves the point that Glenn told Darlene he wanted to kill her so he could marry someone else. So, I mean,
yeah.
It was a snake eating its own tail. But, anyway, after this, Darlene says that she never went back to church. She said that the congregation was kind of split, almost 50-50. Some of them believed Darlene's story, and then some believed Glenn. But they threw her out of church because of the claims of adultery. Because that's not cool.
Yeah.
And they threw her out of church over it. Like I said, they were just like completely slut-shaming her the whole way through.
Yeah.
And they make her sound like she's, I don't know, like Aphrodite or something, like Helen of Troy, like she's just a gorgeous woman that just could have anybody or anything. I mean, it's crazy. Like, you should watch the documentary. She wasn't all that. No, it's on, Alabama Snake is on HBO. But I've also used there's been some episodes of other shows about it, true crime shows, so I'll go over those in a minute. But she said that before all of this came to pass, that she had tried to tell the church that he was beating her, and they just would try to cast the devil out of her.
Oh, wow.
Nobody believed her. Nobody helped her.
So she was just screaming, and everybody was just like, it's a God thing.
They're like, take this butane torch and put it to your face.
Listen, you need the snake. Take the snake. The snake will fix it all. You don't need Jesus. You need the snake. That's how we can tell.
So anyway, and when she went on these talk shows, she was faced with some criticism because some people criticized the fact that if this had happened to her, if she had been bitten once and he took her out in public the next day, that she had made contact with other people and that she could reach out for help. Mm-hmm. But she kind of clapped back at him, and she'd say, I was married to this man for 16 years. He was beating the hell out of me every day. He had a gun in the car. And she's like, you may think that you would do that, but you wouldn't do that.
No.
You would do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is pretty well known about abuse.
Yeah, most people understand, like, because it's so easy for somebody on the outside looking in to be like, oh, I wouldn't put up with that.
It's like when somebody, kidnaps you, makes you go take money out of your bank account.
Like, I wouldn't do that.
And you go do it because they've told you they're going to kill you, they're going to kill your family, or something like that.
It's so easy for people to be like, no, I wouldn't do that. Like, you don't know that
but you don't know when you're actually
situation.
in the situation. Absolutely. So, after this, Marty grows up. He says he felt that he had lost both his parents after this. And I don't really know what that means. He didn't really get into it. I don't know if he went to live with someone else after this and didn't live with Darlene. Of course, he lost Glenn, but I don't really know why he lost Darlene. Mm. It never really says it, but I get the impression that they're kind of estranged.
Yeah.
But anyway, he got married and had a bunch of kids of his own. And he says he just tries to be a better father and give his kids better life than he had.
Well, it sounds like, both his parents were fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and, I feel bad for the guy, I guess, in a way, but I guess he kind of just moved forward from it. Is it kind of embarrassing to him, or do you get that vibe whenever he was kind of telling the story?
Well, I mean, he talked in this documentary.
I'm just going to watch it.
I didn't get that he was embarrassed, but...
Yeah.
It's fucked up, any way you put it, but...
I mean, if my parents were like, out in the front yard going at it, chasing each other with snakes, like,
chasing her with a snake.
That's just what I imagine. If like with these, I just imagine with these crazy snake people.
I'm just wondering if they let Glenn out, if he's gonna go back to handling the snakes and preaching.
I don't know. I wonder if in prison now, if he's preaching in there, I'm sure he probably
I'm wondering, I wonder the same thing.
Yeah, because, everybody finds God when they're in prison, and he already found God beforehand, so,
God, right? Yeah, I don't know about that, but, I mean, I guess if he gets out and you're on a walking trail, you see some old man looking under rocks and shit.
So have you heard anything about, like, Darlene?
Well, she was in the documentary, and she doesn't really talk about her present life. It looks like maybe she hasn't been living her best life. But, I mean, if she hasn't...
Well, she's also, like, in her 70s, too, now.
She's 60s, I'm thinking, like, her 60s, yeah. But, I mean, if she's not being bit by venomous snakes anymore, I mean...
I wonder if she still plays with them.
I don't think she does. I think because she got out of the church, and that was the only, reason they were handling them, so... But, anyway, yeah, so that's the case of Glenn and Darlene Summerford.
Well...
Little ditty about Glenn and Darlene. Darlene was a whore and Glenn was mean. So anyway, sources I used for this, I really wanted to read a book because there's several books written about it. I just couldn't get them here in time. We really wanted to get this out there.
Don't.
Yeah, the snakes are the real MVPs in this case.
Oh, man.
But, of course, my main source was the new documentary on HBO that came out last month. It's called Alabama Snake. It's really good. I also watched an episode of City Confidential. Have you ever seen that? It's an A&E show. It came out in, like, the early 2000s.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I watched that. And I also watched an episode of the ID show Dark Temptations. One thing I forgot to mention. In 2003, Glenn Summerford broke out of prison. He escaped.
What?
Yep, he escaped.
Okay. How did he do this?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how he did it, but they said, like, he seemed to vanish into thin air, like God had called him up to heaven.
Probably did. Wonder if...
No, I'm not serious. They found him in a dumpster 45 minutes later.
Okay.
And now he's serving his time.
So did he get another escape charge?
He did. He got 30 years attached to his 99.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, 129 years. Yeah.
Those guys, yeah.
He is. He's something else.
Maybe he still got that demon that jumped inside of him.
Or maybe when he got in prison, the demon's like, fuck this.
He's like, what the fuck?
I'm not spending the rest of my life in prison with you.
Because of you.
Oh, so I've had fun with this.
I did too. I enjoyed this story. I'm really surprised you chose this story because you hate snakes.
Oh, well, that's probably why I chose it. Probably why, but...
And it's a good story, and it's a lot lighter than, it's a lot lighter to start off our first episode with. I think that's great.
And maybe we were making fun of some Appalachian people for a little bit there, and, I'm sorry about that. But that is absolutely our ancestry completely. I mean, our family comes from the mountains of North Carolina and East Tennessee. They've been there since, like, the 1700s. A lot of our family still lives out there, so we can make fun of them because we are them.
And then I think I said something earlier about rednecks. I know some people take that offensive. We come from rednecks too, so we can say that.
Yeah, we can say that. Yeah, because we are them.
We're actually, we actually live in Nashville. We're technically from Nashville, but, I live in Nashville. Christina lives near.
I live near.
Yeah, but, we are originally from Richmond, Virginia.
Yep.
So a lot of our people are up there too. So we're just two Southern girls down here, and we honestly didn't realize how thick our Southern accents were until we started doing this.
Yeah.
So I always thought, because people down here would always be like, "Oh, you sound proper. Where are you from?" And
Yeah, I mean, compared to some people, like, I really didn't think I had much of an accent. But when I went to Massachusetts, people
I'm
were
pretty
constantly
sure.
telling me, like, I love your accent. I was like a celebrity. It was cool. They're like,
Talk to me. Keep talking to me.
They're like, I love your accent. I'm like, thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all. You got any sweet tea? Yeah, I was like a Southern belle up there.
They didn't have sweet tea up there, did they?
Hell no. I mean, I wasn't even going to ask. I knew better than to ask. I didn't want to see what they gave me.
Yeah.
So I was not even going to ask that. But anyway, we appreciate you tuning in to our first, hopefully our first official episode.
Absolutely. We're also gonna come out with another one. We're probably gonna hit you guys with a 2-hitter when we do release it. So but this will definitely be our first one. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any suggestions or just tell us how we're doing, hit us up on Facebook. We have a Facebook page now. It's under construction, but
it is under construction, but it is called True Crime Down Yonder. Maybe you can find it. But shoot us an email at
tcdownyonder@gmail.com, and that is
tcdownyonder @gmail.com.
Yes.
Yonder is spelled Y-O-U. Y-O-N. Y-O-N-D-E-R.
tcyonder @gmail.com. We just wanted to make sure we spelled that out right for you.
Let me write it down and make sure
down
we did.
Yonder.
Okay.
And we decided to name it that just because, I don't know, everybody, what is a down yonder? Everybody's grandma down here says yonder. Going down yonder.
Yeah. Just something we say.
Yeah, just something we say.
And because there are a million podcasts, and so all the other names were taken.
And Worcesters.
So... Anyway, well, we will you will hear us next time.
Yeah, and in the meantime, don't play with snakes and make your wife,
Don't kill your wife with a snake.
Yeah, don't play with
snakes at all. Snakes are not meant to be played with.
I don't think God or
I don't think
Jesus
God wants you to play with snakes. I think that's why he made them poisonous.
Yeah, and cold-blooded. They're not really good pets. I mean, but anyways, yeah. Do whatever makes you happy.
Hey, if they're not venomous, some people are into snakes. If that's your thing, go ahead. We can still be friends. I just can't come to your house, and you can't bring your snakes to mine. Anyway, all right. We're going to say bye now.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, y'all.